Are you wondering if your child needs speech therapy? And if so, do you need help figuring out which sounds your child might need help with? If so, you've come to the right place, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can get the answers to those questions, as well as many more, as I show you how you can test your child from the comfort of your own home. Hi everyone, welcome to my own SLP. I'm Rachel and I'm a licensed speech language pathologist, and I create videos with step-by-step strategies showing parents and caregivers how you can help your child increase their speech skills at home. I have a video that comes out every Tuesday and on Thursday showing you different strategies for all of the different speech sounds, as well as ideas and activities for how you can make the process fun and engaging for both you and your child. Be sure to hit subscribe so that you're sure to see each of my videos as I show you step by step how to work on your child's articulation skills at home, helping your child to increase their confidence as well as their ability to communicate with others. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to give my articulation screener. And the benefits of the screener is that I have put together a list of words accompanied with pictures for each of those words that will test your child on each of the speech sounds that a licensed speech language pathologist would be testing. I will also show you how to be able to look at the different mistakes that your child is making and see if they are age appropriate or if they are ones that need some attention. So we'll go through and I will show you step by step how to do this. Starting out, I'll show you the layout of the screener. On the first 2 pages, 1 and 2, we have the instructions as well as charts showing you how to score this screener at the end. On pages 3 through 6, this will be your score sheet that you use to write down notes as you're going through and listening to your child say each of these words. And it'll also show you how to mark any mistakes so that you can keep track of that. Then on pages 7 through 9, these are the images that you will be showing to your child and having them labeled so that they can have those right in front of them. I would recommend that you record your child saying these words, just in case you need to go back and listen to how they said some words. It can be helpful because sometimes in the moment it's hard to hear some of these sounds, especially if they say them a little softer, and it can be hard to remember exactly how they pronounced each of the sounds. So I would recommend recording it so you can have that to go back and listen to. As far as setup, what I would recommend is to do it at a table, and if you can, I would sit across from your child or to the side of your child. One thing that I like to do is I like to have some type of barrier between me and the child. And the reason I like to do this is because I will have just the images in front of the child. So pages 7 through 9, that just has the images. And then the barrier covers up the score sheet. So some kids can be a little sensitive to seeing you take notes as they're saying different words because they pick up on the fact that if you're writing something down, then they're probably making a mistake, and then they start to feel pressured, and it can make it stressful for the child. That is how I would set it up if you're worried about your child being sensitive to watching you write down notes as they are saying the different words. Now that you have things set up, you're going to point to the pictures one by one, and you're going to ask your child, "What is this?" And you'll see on these sheets that I have the images on the score sheet for you as well to be able to look at so that you can glance back and forth between the forms quickly and be able to find exactly where you're at. So you'll point to the picture and say, "What is this?" So starting with number 1, if we're testing them for zipper, you're going to point to the picture and say, "What is this?" If the child says the word and there aren't any mistakes, I don't write anything down. So when I'm looking back at the score sheet, if I don't have anything written down, then I assume that the child said it correctly. Now, if your child says the wrong word or doesn't know what a picture is, you will say, "This is a zipper. What is this?" So you'll say the name of it, pause, and then ask them again, what is this? Moving on to step 2, you'll see under here, I have a couple different examples. Under each word are colored boxes, and what you're going to do is after the child says the word, if there is a mistake, you will look and see, was there a mistake on any of the sounds that have a colored box underneath them? So one thing to note is that on the words, we aren't testing for every single sound in the word. We're only testing for the specific sounds that are color-coded. So you'll notice that some words have 1 box under them, some have 2, and some have 3. And I show you in the key over here what each of those colors represent. The light blue indicates that we are testing the sound at the beginning of a word. If it's orange, that indicates that it's being tested in the middle of a word. And if it's purple, that indicates that we're testing it at the end of the word. You can look at the sheet and notice that in number 3, for the letter B, it's being tested at the beginning of the word, whereas down here, in number 5, for ice cube, it's being tested at the end of the word because the last sound is B in that word. The reasoning behind testing at the different levels of the word will come into play later on as you start working on the different sounds. So don't worry too much about the reason for testing that right now. I will go through all of that as you're working on different sounds with your child, but just know that that is the meaning for the different colors of those boxes. For this first example, you're testing the word rope. Your child says wope, then underneath the R, since that's where the mistake is being made, you would put an X on that box. And over here, where it says how they said it, you would write it down, wope, to help you remember how it was pronounced. And then for the second example of guitar, you say, what is this? And the child says, da-ta. Then you're going to notice, okay, instead of saying a G, they said a D, and then they said the T sound just fine, but then they didn't do the R. Don't worry too much about how you write down how they said it. Just write it down any way that is going to help you remember how they pronounced it. You can do it similar to how I've done it in these examples, or use any method that will help you remember how they said it. You'll go through and you will test all of the words for your child. So all 40 words, mark off boxes for any sounds that they did incorrectly and write down how they said it. Then once you've gone through all of those words, then your child is done with their part. And now I will show you how we're going to go through and score the screener. Now to go back and score all of this, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the score sheet and you're going to look and see where you wrote down any notes, where there are any mistakes made. And as you find those, you're going to be going back to step number 3, and you'll look here on the form. I have all of the different sounds that we've been testing for, all listed right here. And you may notice that they aren't in alphabetical order and that they're color-coded. And the way that I have them set up is, you'll notice right here, it talks about what each color represents. So for the blue, these are sounds that are typically mastered by the time a child is age 3. For the next ones, for the purple, these are sounds that are typically mastered by the time a child is 4, and then so on with the different colors. So that is just to kind of help you decipher the different sounds, and you'll see with the chart later on how this comes in handy. So one way you can go through and score this, you can start right here with the P sound, and if you look under each letter in parentheses, there are a few numbers. These numbers are the numbers assigned to each of the pictures that tested that specific sound. So if you look right here on the P, it has numbers 11, 1, and 2. You can go back in the form and you can see on numbers 11, 1, and 2, we're testing for the P. And you can look and see if there were any errors or any mistakes made that you marked off that box underneath a P. If there was a mistake, then you would come back here to step 3, and under the P, where it says number of errors, you would put a tally mark. Then you can move on to the next sound. So for B, you'll look again right here and notice that it has the numbers 3, 4, and 5 associated with it. So you would go back to your form and look at numbers 3, 4, and 5 and see if there were any errors made on the B. And you can continue on and go one by one and check all of the individual sounds and put tally marks for any mistakes made on that specific sound. Another way you can do this, especially if your child only had a few errors, you can look through your score sheet and just look really quickly to find where you made notes. For example, if you look and on number 1, your child mispronounced the Z, so you marked off the Z, then you can come back to step number 3, quickly find the Z sound and put a tally mark right there. And then if you look on your form again and notice, okay, right here on the number 10, there was a mistake on this portion of the word under the S. And so you'll go back to the form, you'll look underneath in parentheses, there isn't a number 10 for S. And the reason for that is because we are testing not for the letter that is used to spell the word, but the sound that is used in each word. So on number 10, nose, even though it's spelled with an S, it's making the Z sound, nose. So you look back at the form and under Z, you will find the number 10. So just be careful as you're going back through that instead of quickly putting a tally mark on any sound, make sure that the corresponding number is underneath that sound. And if you need to pause and think, okay, what sound is the letter making that was tested in this word? Then that should help you. But the surest way to make sure that you're getting the tallies in the right spot is to look and see under each sound which numbers are associated with that sound, where they were tested. Once you've gone through and you've put a tally mark for each of the sounds that were made incorrectly, then you'll come over here to step number 4. In this section provided where it says speech sounds made in error, you're going to look back at number 3 and look for any of the sounds that have tally marks on them. So in the example provided, it shows that on the S sound, there was a tally mark. So you would come over here and you would write down S. For the L sound, there weren't any tally marks made, and so you wouldn't write anything down. Then moving forward and looking at the R sound, there were tally marks under the sound, so we would write down an R in this space. And you can just go through, and it doesn't matter how many tally marks there are for a given sound. If there are any tally marks at all, you're going to go ahead and put that down for sounds made in error. Now moving on to the final step, you now have a list of any sounds that your child may have made a mistake on. And now I'm going to help you decipher which sounds are age appropriate, that are fine for them to be mispronouncing at their age, and to help you figure out which sounds they might need help with at this point. If you look in section number 5, you'll notice I've included this speech sound development chart, and this is just an easier way to look at all of the different speech sounds that we have just tested to see at what age those are typically mastered. So looking under here, by the time a child is 3 years old, they should be producing each of these sounds in single words. And you might notice that when we were testing your child, all we were doing was having them say the name of a picture. We pointed, had them say the name. They were just saying the word. They weren't using sentences or conversation. When we're looking at this chart, these sounds associated with these ages, these are sounds they should be producing when just saying a single word like that. That's a reason for why we test in this manner as well. If you have any questions about what letters are used in association with specific sounds, I have a video that you can check out that's linked below. You can click on here to see my speech sound development chart. And I go through and I talk about each of these sounds at each age, and I tell you exactly what sound we're looking for. Not necessarily the letter that's used, but what sound. So going on to section number 5, we're going to look at these 2 boxes. We want to figure out from each of these sounds, are they age appropriate for my child at this point, or are they delayed? And how you'll do that, if we look up here, say your child made errors on the sounds P, N, T, S, and R. You're going to look and you're going to say, okay, for this example, say your child is 4 years old. You'll look down here and you'll say, okay, for P, they should have been able to say that by the time they were 3, and my child is 4. So I'm going to write down P over here in the delayed section because my child should have been saying that already. For the N sound, look and see, okay, that should have been mastered by the time my child was 3 as well. So I will put that over here under delayed. Then for the T sounds, my child is 4. The T is under 4 years old. They should have been pronouncing that by the time they were 4. So I'm going to put that under delayed as well. For the S sound, the sound, I'll look, and that's typically mastered by the time a child is 5. So I'll look, my child is 4. It's okay that that sound hasn't been mastered yet. So I'm going to put the S over here under age appropriate. And then same thing, I'll find the R over here under the sounds that are typically mastered by the time my child is 6. And so R would be age appropriate for a 4-year-old as well. So I'll put R over here in this box for age appropriate. Okay, so now you've got your list, you know which sounds are age appropriate, and so hopefully that brings you a little relief that, hey, I don't need to worry about those sounds. I can still enjoy hearing the cute little things that my child says when mispronouncing some of those words. And then over here are some of the ones that we can work on. For parents, what I recommend when you're trying to figure out which sound to start with, if there's more than one sound that needs a little work, I would look back at the speech sound development chart and find the sound that is the earliest developing sounds. And so in this example, for the P, N, and the T that are considered delayed for this child, you'll look and see that the P and N are earlier developing sounds than the T. So I would recommend that you choose the P or the N. And if there are 2 sounds within that same age bracket, what I would do is you just do a quick little test to see which sound is easier for them to imitate or to repeat you saying. And you'll hear speech language pathologists refer to this as stimulability. We will say which sound are they more stimulable for. And what we mean by this is pretty much which sound is easier for us to coach them through. In this scenario, if I'm the parent and my child needs to work on the P or the N, and I'm trying to figure out which sound to start with, then I might have them say a couple words that start with the P sound. For example, with the P and the N, say instead of saying pie, like a piece of pie, your child is saying bye. You can't get them to say the P, and you're trying and you're saying just say pie, and your child is still giving you bye, bye. Then you're gonna try and do words with the N sound in it. So you might say nut, and your child is going mutt. You say, okay, let's try again, and you're gonna emphasize that specific sound. Nut. And your child watches you and they hear you say it, and they're kind of watching and they go nut, and you say okay. With the N sound, as you were coaching them and they were watching you and listening to you, they were able to get a N sound. So then that's going to tell you that they are more stimulable for the N sound. So I would start with that one. If there's 2 sounds in the same sound bracket and you're trying to figure out which one to start with, that is how I would try and figure it out, and then just go in that order. And lastly, you can find this form on my website at myownslp.com, as well as my speech sound development chart if you want that to look back at, and also the speech sound hierarchy, so that you can have for your records what sequence to follow. And last thing to note is that for any of these sounds that your child might be struggling with, if you notice that they are more than 2 years behind on a sound, I would strongly recommend that you seek out an evaluation from an SLP. But anything within a year of the sounds you can work on at home and see if you're able to coach your child through that. And your child doesn't necessarily need to be delayed to start working on these sounds. Again, if it's within that year window, either way, you can start working on that. And this way we can set our children up for the greatest levels of feeling successful. All right, I hope some of the strategies in that video are ones that your child specifically needs right now as you are striving to help your child increase their articulation skills. Let me know in the comments down below what was helpful, or if you have any questions. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can see each of those videos coming out twice a week on Tuesday and Thursday, showing you all the various strategies for working on different speech sounds, as well as making this process fun and engaging. Now, I hope that you will go share your goodness with someone today, and I will see you in the next one.